Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Dere Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhavati Nashtake. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, the material world as a great forest of enjoyment. Text number 11 onwards. So going to the translation, sometimes the conditioned soul is very aggrieved by the chastisement of his enemies and government servants who use harsh words against him directly or indirectly. At that time, his heart and ears become very saddened. Such chastisement may be compared to the sounds of owls and crickets. There are different types of enemies within this material world. The government chastises one due to not paying income taxes. Such criticism, direct or indirect, saddens one, and sometimes the conditioned soul tries to counteract that chastisement. Unfortunately, he cannot do anything. So government chastises one due to not paying income taxes. Of course, it chastises for many other things, but this is the main thing because that's all the government wants to levy more and more taxes. And the conditioned soul, Prabhupada said, tries to counteract that chastisement. Maybe sometimes just pay some bribery or try to hide the money so he doesn't have to pay income tax. But the problem is the suffering is there in the material world. That cannot go away. Text 12. Due to his pious activities in previous lives, the conditioned soul attains material facilities in this life. But when they are finished, he takes shelter of wealth and riches, which cannot help him in this life or the next. Because of this, he approaches the living dead who possess these things. Such people are compared to impure trees, creepers, and poisonous wells. Living dead. Prabhupada has used this, or it has come earlier also in Srimad Bhagavatam. Once somebody asked Prabhupada, what do you see all these people? I think he was he was either in the market or at the airport, something. I forgot exactly where he was. And Prabhupada said, I just see dead bodies flapping around. Basically, if they are not living to serve Krishna, so they are dead. They're dead to the spirituality. And Prabhupada said, they're just dead bodies flapping around, just moving their hands and legs. That's all it is. Of course, that's Prabhupada's vision. The wealth and riches acquired through previous pious activities should not be misused for sense gratification. Enjoying them for sense gratification is like enjoying the fruits of a poisonous tree. Such activities will not help the conditioned soul in any way, neither in this life nor the next. However, if one engages his possessions in the service of the Lord under the guidance of a proper spiritual master, he will attain happiness both in this life and the next. Unless he does so, he eats a forbidden apple and thereby loses his paradise. Lord Krishna therefore advises that one's possessions should be given unto him, unto Krishna. So possessions, it's not that Krishna is hungry or Krishna needs our possessions. He is full of all riches. It's not like we have 80% and he has 100. No, he has everything. Everything belongs to him only. It's just when we use it in Krishna's service, the same riches can purify us. Otherwise, the same things can entangle us. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. Material wealth and opulence attained through previous pious activities can be fully utilized for one's benefit in this life and the next if one is Krishna conscious. One should not try to possess more than he needs for the bare necessities. If one gets more than is needed, the surplus should be fully engaged in Krishna's service. That will make the conditioned soul, the world, and Krishna happy. And this is the aim of life. So that the point is the same riches can liberate us, very much liberate us. Text 13. Sometimes to mitigate distresses in this forest of the material world, the conditioned soul receives cheap blessings from atheists. He then loses all intelligence in their association. This is exactly like jumping in a shallow river. As a result, one simply breaks his head. He is not able to mitigate his sufferings from the heat, and in both ways, he suffers. The misguided, conditioned soul also approaches so-called sadhus and swamis who preach against the principles of the Vedas. It does not receive benefit from them, either in the present or in the future. Cheaters are always there to manufacture their own way of spiritual realization. To get some material benefit, the conditioned soul approaches these pseudo sannyasis and yogis for cheap blessings. But he does not receive any benefit from them, either spiritual or material. In this age, there are many cheaters who show some jugglery and magic. They even create gold to amaze their followers, and their followers accept them as God. This type of cheating is very prominent in Kali Yuga. So we all know who Prabhupada is referring to here. So they even create gold to amaze their followers, and their followers accept them as God. In some other place, Prabhupada did say that this Swami or whatever yogi, he produces little gold ring or little gold chain, and people say, oh, he's God. God has created mines and mines of gold. That is God. He doesn't create just one little ring or little chain and that's it. But people, this is what people want actually. They just want to be cheated. Cheap blessings. And this is the real guru, bona fide guru, who doesn't give all these material blessings. He guides his disciples on the way back home, back to Godhead. That's it. That's a real guru. But people, because they have this cheating tendency in their hearts, they will go to these kind of cheating gurus. And Krishna, sitting as Paramatma, understanding their desires, he will take them to these kind of gurus only. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes the real guru in this way. Sansara davanalali loka tranaya karunya ghana ghanatva. One should approach a guru who can extinguish the blazing fire of this material world, the struggle for existence. People want to be cheated, and therefore they go to yogis and swamis who play tricks. But tricks do not mitigate the miseries of material life. If being able to manufacture gold is a criterion for becoming God, then why not accept Krishna, the proprietor of the entire universe, wherein there are countless tons of gold? As mentioned here, the color of gold is compared to the will-o'-the-wisp or the yellow stool. Therefore, one should not be allured by gold manufacturing gurus, but should sincerely approach a devotee like Jad Bharat. Jad Bharat instructed Rahugana Maharaj so well that the king was relieved from the bodily conception. One cannot become happy by accepting a false guru. A guru should be accepted as advice in Srimad Bhagavatam. One should approach a bona fide guru to inquire about the highest benefit of life. Such a guru is described as follows. Shabde pare cha nishnatam. Such a guru does not manufacture gold or juggle words. He is well versed in the conclusions of the Vedic knowledge. He is freed from all material contamination and is fully engaged in Krishna's service. If one is able to obtain the dust of the lotus feet of such a guru, his life becomes successful. Otherwise, he is baffled both in this life and in the next. So this is real guru who can take us on the path of devotion service, who can take us on the path to so that we're fully engaged in Krishna's service, and then basically we finish a material life. Not a guru who makes a material life more severe and make sure that we're going to just take birth again and again and again and again. That's not a guru. Text 14. In this material world, when the conditioned soul cannot arrange for his own maintenance, despite exploiting others, he tries to exploit his own father or son, taking away that relative's possessions, although they may be very insignificant. If he cannot acquire things from his father, son, or other relatives, he is prepared to give them all kinds of trouble. And this is so common in Kali Yuga. And it's on the rise. As more and more time passes, more and more such incidents are going to happen. Once we actually saw a distressed man steal ornaments from his daughter just to maintain himself. So Prabhupada must have seen that in Calcutta when he was there. A distressed man stole ornaments from his own daughter just to maintain himself. As the English proverb goes, necessity knows no law. When a conditioned soul needs something, he forgets his relationship with his relatives and exploits his own father or son. And many times there is not even need, there is just greed, that he wants more and more and more and more, and ready to cheat, ready to exploit anybody. We also receive information from Srimad Bhagavatam that in this age of Kali, the time is approaching, quickly approaching, when a relative will kill another relative for a small farthing. Without Krishna consciousness, people will deteriorate further and further into a hellish condition, wherein they will perform abominable acts. And the relatives, what to speak of relatives? Anybody, even in the society of devotees, because we are not ready to even be called a devotee actually. We are so much in the beginning stages, so much in the beginning, that these modes of passion and ignorance are so prominent in all of us, that we're ready to cheat others, even though they are trying to make progress in devotional life. It has become so prominent, even among initiated devotees. So this, and we think we can get away from this. We think, oh, I'm initiated, I'm chanting, so I'm exempted. No, we cannot be. Text 15. In this world, family life is exactly like a blazing fire in the forest. There is not the least happiness, and gradually one becomes more and more implicated in unhappiness. In household life, there is nothing favorable for perpetual happiness. Being implicated in home life, the conditioned soul is burned by the fire of lamentation. Sometimes he condemns himself as being very unfortunate And sometimes he claims that he suffers because he performed no pious activities in his previous life. So everywhere it's basically suffering is there. In the Guru Ashtaka, Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has sung Sansara Davan Lalita Loga. A life in this material world is exactly like a blazing forest fire. No one goes to set fire to the forest, yet the fire takes place. Similarly, everyone wants to be happy in the material world, but the miserable conditions of material life simply increase. Sometimes a person caught in the blazing fire of material existence condemns himself, but due to his worldly conception, he cannot get out of the entanglement, and thus he suffers more and more and more. So, person caught in the blazing fire condemns himself, means person is suffering in the material world. But because of this attachment, due to bodily conception, he cannot get out of the entanglement. And this body that we are trying to maintain and the bodily products we identify with, its attachment is so strong, so severe, that many times even the body has become useless because of disease, because of old age, but we still don't want to give it up. We don't want to. Many times people pay to the doctor, oh, please, just let me live for another week or another month or another year, because of so much of attachment. It's very, very important to get detached, and the real detachment can only come if we are attached to Krishna's name, to Krishna's service, to Krishna's form. That's what we have to transfer our attachment to. Then it will be very easy. In fact, devotee wants to leave the body. If in such a condition, he just wants to leave the body. But others, they're so attached, so attached. Text 16. Government men are always like carnivorous demons, like Rakshasas, man-eaters. Sometimes these government men turn against a conditioned soul and take away all his accumulated wealth. Being bereft of his life's reserved wealth, the conditioned soul loses all enthusiasm. Indeed, it is as though he loses his life. Well, right now I am also working for the government, but I don't think I act like this. But if Prabhupada says, Bhagavatam says, must be true. The word Rajakul Rakshasa is very significant. Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled about 5,000 years ago, yet government men were referred to as Rakshasas or carnivorous demons. If government men are opposed to a person, that person will be bereft of all his riches, which he has accumulated with great care over a long period of time. That is for sure, because they have so much of power, so much of executive power, police power. They have everything. Actually, no one wants to pay income taxes. Even government men themselves try to avoid these taxes. But at unfavorable times, income taxes are exacted forcibly, and the taxpayers become very morose. And that's when the whole problem starts. Text 17. Sometimes the conditioned soul imagines that his father or grandfather has again come in the form of his son or grandson. In this way, he feels the happiness one sometimes feels in a dream. And the conditioned soul sometimes takes pleasure in such mental concoctions. Due to ignorance of the real existence of the Lord, the conditioned soul imagines many things. Influenced by fruitive activity, he comes together with his relatives, fathers, sons, and grandfathers, exactly as the straws gather together in a moving stream. In a moment, the straws are thrown everywhere and they lose contact. In conditional life, the living entity is temporarily with many other conditioned souls. They gather together as family members, and the material affection is so strong that even after a father or grandfather passes away, one takes pleasure in thinking that they return to the family in different forms. Sometimes this may happen, but in any case, the conditioned soul likes to take pleasure in such concocted thoughts. So this becomes our whole world actually, and we think it's continuing and going on, and that the conditioned soul takes pleasure in such mental concoctions. Text 18. In household life, one is ordered to execute many yagyas and fruitive activities, especially the Vivaha Yagya, the marriage ceremony for sons and daughters, and the sacred thread ceremony. These are all the duties of a grihastha, and they're very extensive and troublesome to execute. They are compared to a big hill over which one must cross when one is attached to material activities. A person desiring to cross over these ritualistic ceremonies certainly feels pains, like the piercing of thorns and pebbles endured by one attempting to climb a hill. Thus, the conditioned soul suffers unlimitedly. So many ceremonies, all in the name of well-being of the family and the well-being of sons and daughters has to be done. And nowadays, not just these ritualistic ceremonies to send them to schools and colleges and pay for all kinds of fees, tuition fees, this fees, that fees. It's a huge hill. I mean, this purpose is, it's like pains like piercing of thorns and pebbles endured by one attempting to climb a hill. Not easy. That's why in 12th canto it is said a person in Kali Yuga feels very fortunate if he can maintain his family. It's such a huge task these days. And thus the conditioned soul suffers unlimitedly. There are many social functions for keeping a prestigious position in society. In different countries and societies, there are various festivals and rituals. In India, the father is supposed to get his children married. When he does so, his responsibility to the family is complete. Arranging marriages is very difficult, especially in these days. At the present moment, no one can perform the proper kind of sacrifice, nor can anyone afford to pay for the marriage ceremony of sons and daughters. Therefore, householders are very much distressed when they're confronted by these social duties. It is as though they are pierced by thorns and hurt by pebbles. Material attachment is so strong that despite the suffering, one cannot give it up. Prahlad Maharaj therefore recommends Sitvatam Patam Griham Andakupam Vanam Gato Yadharim Ashrayat. The so-called comfortable family position is compared to a dark well in a field. If one falls in a dark well covered by grass, his life is lost, despite his cry for rescue. Highly advanced spiritualists therefore recommend that one should not enter the Grihastha ashram. It is better to prepare oneself in the Brahmacharya ashram for austerities and remain a pure brahmachari throughout one's life so that one will not feel the piercing thorns of material life in the Grihastha ashram. In the Grihastha ashram, one has to accept invitations from friends and relatives and perform ritualistic ceremonies. By so doing, one becomes captivated by such things, although he may not have sufficient resources to continue them. To maintain the Grihastha lifestyle, one has to work very hard to acquire money. Thus, one is implicated in material life and he suffers the thorn pricks. It is true. And these days, just to keep the position in the society, one has to do so many things and so many expensive ceremonies just to make sure, yes, everybody understands where is our position, and so much lavishly he has to perform. A brahmachari life is so simple, actually. No such issues. Doesn't have to do all these rituals and ceremonies and take care of the family, sons, daughters, and the wife, and for the sake of what? Just a little pleasure. But then many times people ask, and how the world will go on if everybody becomes a brahmachari? Well, first of all, not everybody is going to become a brahmachari. That's possible. Not possible at all. And then secondly, even if hypothetically speaking, every boy becomes a brahmachari, it is after all Krishna's headache to maintain the material world. It's not our headache. So he'll take care of the situation. We don't have to worry about it. So whether he sends some boys from either hellish or heavenly planets, that's up to him. But he will take care of the girls. We don't have to worry so much about it. But again, this is only hypothetically speaking. It's not possible that everybody becomes a brahmachari. Text 19. Sometimes, due to bodily hunger and thirst, the conditioned soul becomes so disturbed that he loses his patience and becomes angry with his own beloved sons, daughters, and wife. Thus, being unkind to them, he suffers all the more. Srila Vidyapati Thakur has sung, Tatal Sakate Vari Bindu Sama, Sutamita Ramani Samaje. The happiness of family life is compared to a drop of water in the desert. No one can be happy in family life. Wow. No one can be happy in family life. So there is no such thing as lived happily ever after, as they show in the movies. According to the Vedic civilization, one cannot give up the responsibilities of family life. But today, everyone is giving up family life by divorce. This is due to the miserable condition experienced in the family. Sometimes, due to misery, one becomes very hardened towards his affectionate sons, daughters, and wife. Thus, this is but part of the blazing fire of the forest of the material life. So devotee actually think this is actually mercy of Krishna. I'm not attached to my family, and because of all the miserable conditions I'm being put into, means I should get more and more attached to Krishna, take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. That's the only way that can alleviate all the sufferings. So in 12th canto, we'll read about the story of a Brahman, Avanti Brahman. And he was very miser Brahman. He had his family, but somehow Krishna's arrangement, he loses all his wealth, everything. He was very rich, but somehow he loses everything. And then because he lost everything, all the money, his family just tortured him and kicked him out of the house because he was useless. Now he's not bringing in any money. So then he leaves the house and he goes around, and then he accepts 24 gurus. 24 gurus means different things, he learned different things from. Like pigeon, he learned something from pigeon or python or earth or a girl, something like that. And then he considers that his life is now fulfilled, his aim is fulfilled. But it was very painful when he loses everything and his own family kicks him out. But this is what happens. Text 20. Shukdev Goswami continued speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. My dear king, sleep is exactly like a python. Those who wander in the forest of material life are always devoured by the python of sleep. Being bitten by this python, they all remain always in the darkness of ignorance. They are like dead bodies thrown in a distant forest. Thus, the conditioned souls cannot understand what is going on in life. Material life means being fully absorbed in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Out of these, sleep is taken very seriously. While asleep, one completely forgets the object of life and what to do. For spiritual realization, one should try to avoid sleep as much as possible. The Goswamis of Vrindavan practically did not sleep at all. Of course, they slept some, but for the body requires sleep. But they slept only about 2 hours, and sometimes not even that. They always engaged in spiritual cultivation. Nidra har vihara kadi vijito. Following in the footsteps of the Goswamis, we should try to reduce sleeping, eating, mating, and defending. So sleep means one is in complete ignorance, complete darkness. Because when he's asleep, he forgets who he is, his real position. He just forgets. So this is what Prabhupada said, for spiritual realization, one should try to avoid sleep as much as possible. So we can reduce our sleeping number of hours. And also at the same time, when one makes progress spiritually, all these 4 activities, the bodily requirements of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, they all go down. They all go down themselves. But what Prabhupada is right when he says the sleep is taken very seriously out of all these 4. Text 21. In the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul is sometimes bitten by envious enemies, which are compared to serpents and other creatures. Through the tricks of the enemy, the conditioned soul falls from his prestigious position. Being anxious, he cannot even sleep properly. He thus becomes more and more unhappy, and he gradually loses his intelligence and consciousness. In that state, he becomes almost perpetually like a blind man who has fallen into a dark well of ignorance. So through the tricks of enemy, the conditioned soul falls from his prestigious position. And then his anxiety, then he cannot sleep properly, then so many diseases come in, and then more anxiety, more problem, more stress. Then he needs some pills to put him to sleep, and then he gets becomes dependent upon those pills, and more pills he gets addicted to. It's like a loop he cannot get out. Text 22. The conditioned soul is sometimes attracted to the little happiness derived from sense gratification. Thus he has illicit sex or steal another's property. At such a time, he may be arrested by the government or chastised by the woman's husband or protector. Thus, simply for a little material satisfaction, he falls into a hellish condition and is put into jail for rape, kidnapping, theft, and so forth. And all these things are going on all over the world. Sometimes people say, especially the rape thing, that, oh, the society should be very open, and well, the rapes happen in America also, where it's a very open society, and the rapes happen in India also. It's not very open, but not very close, and it happens in Islamic countries also, where the society it's very strict, but the rapes happen because men are gone crazy. That's all. Material life is such that due to indulgence in illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and meat eating, the conditioned soul is always in a dangerous condition. Meat eating and intoxication excite the senses more and more, and the conditioned soul falls victim to women. In order to keep women, money is required, and to acquire money, one begs, borrows, or steals. Indeed, he commits abominable acts that cause him to suffer both in this life and in the next. Consequently, illicit sex must be stopped by those who are spiritually inclined or who are on the path of spiritual realization. Many devotees fall down due to illicit sex. They may steal money and even fall down from the highly honored, renounced order. Then, for a livelihood, they accept menial services and become beggars. It is therefore said in Shastras, Yan me tunadi grimedi sukhami tucham. Materialism is based on sex, whether illicit or illicit. Sex is full of dangers even for those who are addicted to household life. Whether one has a license for sex or not, there is great trouble. Bahu dukh bhag. After one indulges in sex, many volumes of miseries ensue. One suffers more and more in material life. A miserly person cannot properly utilize the wealth he has, and similarly, a materialistic person misuses the human form. Instead of using it for spiritual emancipation, he uses the body for sense gratification. Therefore, he's called a miser. So this human form, which is such a rare form, one attains after going through 8,400,000 or 8 million species, because 400,000 is human species. One very fortunate person gets this human form of life. But looking at the humanity these days, it doesn't even look like they have done any pious activity. And people are so attached to, so attracted to breaking all the principles, so attracted to the sinful life, that it's very, very difficult for a person who wants to seriously make progress on spiritual life. And this is what we'll read in the first chapter of 6th canto, when Ajamil saw this prostitute. And Prabhupada did mention that time there was only few such incidents, but in Kali Yuga, in this day and age, these incidents are happening all over the place. So difficult. And people don't understand whether any sense gratification one is involved in, engaged in, it's just going to bring more and more misery. Any sinful activity, and we know so many demigods are watching and keeping a note of everything that we do. Definitely, punishment will be there. Text 23. Learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity because it is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and in it. Not knowing the value of life, karmis create situations whereby they suffer in this life and in the next. Unfortunately, karmis are very attached to material sense gratification and they cannot appreciate the miserable condition of material life, neither in this life nor in the next. Therefore, the Vedas enjoin that one should awaken to spiritual consciousness and utilize all his activities to attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of God. So this is all what we have to do. Yad karosi yad ashnasi. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. Not for yourself, not for your pleasure. Of course, a devotee enjoys life, but his enjoyment is true enjoyment, pure enjoyment. And the materialists, karmis who are trying to enjoy life, they cannot enjoy it properly because the soul is not happy. And then it entangles them. So some austerity is required, but that austerity, whatever we do, is for our purification and our upliftment only. And in the end, it's not even austerity. It's a pleasure. It gives pleasure to the soul. The results of one's activities should be utilized not for sense gratification, but for the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord gives all information in Bhagavad Gita about the aim of life. And at the end of Bhagavad Gita, he demands surrender unto him. People do not generally like this demand, but one who cultivates a spiritual knowledge for many births eventually surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord. So slowly, more and more surrender will happen. So in the beginning, we surrender a little. Surrendering is what? Following the instructions given by Krishna. Krishna or his representative, same thing. So slowly, we take up the process seriously and surrender more and more and more and more. But this surrender is all willingly, voluntarily, and it gives pleasure. Because generally surrender means we think will be like slaves. But no, there is no slavery in this surrender. There is so much of happiness, actually. Stealing or cheating another person out of his money, the conditioned soul somehow or other keeps it in his possession and escapes punishment. Then another man named Devdatta cheats him and takes the money away. Similarly, another man named Vishnumitra steals the money from Devdatta and takes it away. In any case, the money does not stay in one place. It passes from one hand to another. Ultimately, no one can enjoy the money, and it remains the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So ultimately, no one can enjoy the money. Because if we are stealing from somebody or anybody, we'll always be in anxiety that today or tomorrow the person will come or somebody else will steal it or he will come and take revenge or something will happen. But we don't know. Ultimately, Krishna is going to take away everything. Riches come from Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and the goddess of fortune is a property of Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The goddess of fortune cannot stay anywhere but by the side of Narayan. Therefore, another of her names is Chanchala, restless. She cannot be peaceful unless she is in the company of her husband, Narayan. For example, Lakshmi was carried away by the materialistic Ravan. Ravan kidnapped Sita, the goddess of fortune, belonging to Lord Ram. As a result, Ravan's entire family, opulence, and kingdom were smashed, and Sita, the goddess of fortune, was recovered from his clutches and reunited with Lord Ram. Thus, all property, riches, and wealth belong to Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yajnatapsa. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is a true beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities. And he is the supreme proprietor of all the planetary systems. So not us, not any of the richest person in the world. It's all Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. Foolish materialistic people collect money and steal from other thieves, but they cannot keep it. In any case, it must be spent. One person cheats another, and another person cheats someone else. Therefore, the best way to possess Lakshmi is to keep her by the side of Narayana. This is the point of the Krishna consciousness movement. We worship Lakshmi, Radharani, along with the Narayan Krishna. We collect money from various sources, but the money does not belong to anyone but Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan. If money is utilized in the service of Lakshmi Narayan, the devotee automatically lives in an opulent way. However, if one wants to enjoy Lakshmi the way Ravan did, he will be vanquished by the laws of nature, and whatever few possessions he has will be taken away. Finally, death will take everything away, and death is a representative of Krishna. Mrityu sarvharaschaham. So might as well, when we are living and when we have the resources, when we have the strength in the body, we should use everything in the service of Krishna. Then our life is perfect. Then we enjoy while we are serving Krishna, and when we leave the body, we go back to spiritual world and enjoy over there serving. Text 25. Being unable to protect himself from the threefold miseries of material existence, the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. These threefold miseries are miseries suffered by mental calamity at the hand of the demigods, such as freezing wind and scorching heat, miseries offered by other living entities, and miseries arising from the mind and body themselves. So many miseries. The so-called happy materialistic person is constantly having to endure the threefold miseries of life, called Adhidevik, Adhyatmic, and Adhibhautik. Actually, no one can counteract these miserable threefold conditions. All three may assail one at one time, or one misery may be absent and the other present. Thus, the living entity is full of anxiety, fearing misery from one side or the another. Conditioned soul must be disturbed by at least one of these three miseries. There is no escape. So we can think, just like earthquake just happened or coronavirus, this is all Adhidevic or Adhibhautik miseries. So we can think, I'm fine, I don't have any problems. But then Adhyatmic misery will be there. Means my mind will give me trouble. My body can give me trouble. So something or else will invariably go on. Text 26. As far as transactions with money are concerned, if one person cheats another by a farthing or less, they become enemies. So just for little money, people become enemies. What to speak of when they cheat each other big amounts? This is called samsara davanal. Even in the ordinary transactions between two people, there is invariably cheating because the conditioned soul is defective in four ways. He is illusioned, he commits mistakes, his knowledge is imperfect, and he has a propensity to cheat. Unless one is liberated from material conditioning, these four defects must be there. Consequently, every man has a cheating propensity which is employed in business or money transactions. Although two friends may be living peacefully together, due to their propensity to cheat, they become enemies when there is a transaction between them. A philosopher accuses an economist of being a cheater, and an economist may accuse a philosopher of being a cheater when he comes in contact with money. In any case, this is the condition of material life. One may profess a high philosophy, but when one is in need of money, he becomes a cheater. In this material world, so-called scientists, philosophers, and economists are nothing but cheaters in one way or another. The scientists are cheaters because they present so many bogus things in the name of science. They propose going to the moon, but actually they end up cheating the entire public of large sums of money for their experiments. They cannot do anything useful. This is Prabhupada saying, they cannot do anything useful. So unless one finds a person transcendental to the four basic defects, one should not accept advice and become a victim of the material condition. The best process is to take the advice and instructions of Shri Krishna or his bona fide representative. In this way, one can be happy in this life and the next. Otherwise, tons and tons of cheaters all over the world, ready to take away even little money. They're ready to cheat. For little money, they're ready to cheat. What to speak of big amounts. So this is the material world. This is Prabhupada says the chapter is entitled Material World is a Great Forest of Enjoyment. It's not enjoyment, it's a suffering, but we think we are enjoying. That's what Maya is. So anyway, I mean, it's going so nicely. I don't want to stop, but it's time to stop and see anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble
Hare
obeisance.
Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes, Prabhuji, the class is so nice, and then there's so many points to contemplate, even. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember you were mentioning about that the so-called tips given by um, astrologers, different sort of yogis, can never mitigate our problems in our life unless and until if it is not connected to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
yeah, Prabhuji. So, how I would like to know about this astrological part, but still, like, uh, people are so curious to know about the chart and all, how it works, and then how it does not work at all with a pure devotee.
Well, Radha Prabhu himself is a very good astrologer, so he can tell more about it. For a pure devotee, his chart is not what is mentioned in horoscope chart. It's all controlled by Krishna. Prabhupada also mentioned that these lines in our hands, which when we go to palmist and he reads the lines and he tells us about the fortune. He says the lines in our hands can change if we clap the hands in the kirtan of Lord Krishna. So you want to try that? So whenever kirtan happens, we should clap our hands. Until we are playing some instrument, that's a different story. Otherwise, the hand should be there. That's why it's also called kartal. Kar means the hands. Tal means playing, doing the kirtan, accompanying the kirtan. So he said that lines change. And he didn't say on his own, it's mentioned in the scriptures. So Krishna can do anything for his devotees. But even the others, the astrological charts, it's a great science because himself, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was a big astrologer, a big astrologer. But then again, we have to see if the astrologer is right and if the chart is right. Both the things have to be proper before he can tell anything. But he cannot tell everything also. Just like so far I haven't seen or read about any astrologer telling about coronavirus problem. It's going to be such a huge problem. And it has happened all over the world. Only
Yes,
one boy, this Abhigya is of ISKCON, and I was seeing his videos. He was saying, I predicted. Maybe he did, but not to this extent.
Yes, Prabhuji, I also saw that video actually. So, Prabhuji, this chart which has been made during the childhood while a baby born, that chart is basically a chart from the past life because yet to
Yeah.
the free will which we have it, like that is from the, I would say, like this chanchit karma. So this free will, whatever we have, if we make it use in a proper Krishna conscious way, so that chart can be totally changed, right, Prabhuji?
It can change to a very large extent, but that chart has to be properly made, first of all. Like exact time of birth and everything has to be proper. Obviously, Radha Prabhu can tell more about it. I'm not an astrologer. He's a good astrologer. But then again, there's so many unknowns even in the chart. I mean, if they
Yes,
can
Prabhuji.
predict everything, I don't know.
So how about Prabhuji taking a second birth after the initiation? That again means it's a new life. So
It is a new life because it is called another birth. But then it depends upon how surrendered we are, how much we are trying to follow the instructions.
yes, Prabhuji, right, true. So Prabhuji, why the attachment do not easily come for Krishna?
Because in Nectar of Devotion, it is mentioned that Krishna gets controlled by his devotees. And he does not like to be controlled. Just like you and I wouldn't like to be controlled by anybody.
Wow.
So Krishna also doesn't like to be controlled. So our devotion has to be at such a level that Krishna's love for us should be less than our love for him. Just like Yashoda Maya's love for Krishna is more than Krishna's love for Yashoda. That's why she could bind him. Nobody else could bind Krishna. Only Radharani does. That's a different story. But nobody else could bind Krishna. And nobody could free him either because he was tied up by Yashoda Maya. So that kind of devotion. And he gets controlled and he loves to be controlled, but the devotion has to be there very. It takes a long time.
Please bless me, Prabhuji. I seek your blessings.
My fallen soul, who can I bless?
Prabhuji.
What kind of blessings I can give? We all are struggling, Baba. We all are struggling. Just we have to be together. We all have to be together to help each other. That's all.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for your constant association and your wonderful teachings. Yes. Hare Krishna.
It's a great association, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Entire 24 hours in a day. This is one of the most auspicious time. Half an hour, 1 hour time.
I also relish this time. This is my best time of the day.
Thank you so
Just
much.
been 4 years now. We started this Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Kya kare Mata?
But which is fourth year started now.
4th year. Wow.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in
Yes, ma'am.
Chopati temple, just recently, they completed the Bhagavatam, which took 26 years. मतलब एक shloka, एक दिन वहाँ पे discussion होता था, and they have just began again reading that. So, हम भी कर लेंगे
Yeah.
प्रभुजी. आपकी मर्जी.
And also in the temples, another thing is any festival comes, then they switch to the festival topics, and so many other things go on. So it took a long time. Even in Delhi temple, it's I don't know which canto they are at, but it's going to take long time. But we are going faster than them.
Yes, Prabhuji.
प्रभु जी 2 घंटे का सेशन यहाँ भी शुरू हो गया है अयोध्या में. Every Sunday 1 to 3 congregate.
Okay.
They have named one WhatsApp group. Congregate, there are around, I think 50-60 members are there. So
Okay.
every Saturday there is an invite comes, like 1 to 3, please be there, and we'll have bhajan, kirtan, prasadam, and any queries, Q&A. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
really
good.
wonderful.
That's good. Right. Yeah, we need more and more places where we can have this katha, chanting and hearing and this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chalo, I guess we can stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
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 Thank you, Prabhuji.